Coming back around to the junk, because you do, air some, as you say, kind of air some of your dirty laundry in the book. Have you seen or experienced much backlash for this? Have you regretted sharing this?
I was really quite fearful when it first came out, as I neared release date. The excitement and the bravery and the like, whoa, I'm going to do this, suddenly turned to panic. What have I done? There's no turning back. Because it was so much more than just sexual brokenness. It was, shoplifting. And I mean, there was so much stuff in my testimony that had been secrets for so long. There was a lot of anxiety, and I did kind of expect there to be a judgment. But I have found over and over again, the more I have shared my story and taken those things out from hiding, that when they are out in the open, they lose their power over you. And I've really seen nothing but positive feedback. Not everybody has embraced everything that's in it, and that's okay. But I have been blown away to see women say, that was my story, and no one's ever said anything. No one, you've read my mail, and I can understand that agony of feeling so broken, and then learning how to cope with that and bringing that baggage into my marriage. And my marriage is hurting, and so I haven't regretted it. I think there was that moment of fear of, what's going to happen? But the excitement of seeing freedom and seeing a woman go, yes, this is it. Thank you. I've had a woman come up to me and say, my husband loves you. And it was completely out of context. And I thought, oh, my goodness, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to say. And she said, no, this message has transformed my relationship with my husband. So thank you. He loves you. And so that has just really propelled me to say, here we go. Let's do this.
Yeah, that's good. This talk about transparency, vulnerability, confessing, getting your junk out into the open is so close to the heart of our mission here at Covenant Eyes, because we deal in the realm of accountability all the time. You're talking, of course, your book is an example of it. Your speaking engagements are an example of it. Probably all the women you talk to are great examples of it, for what is for many people the initial confession or the initial getting it out. And like you said, that really does release the stranglehold that sin can have on you. Just getting it out in the open can be not only therapeutic, but it just releases the power of shame in such powerful, powerful way. But then there's the ongoing work of accountability, because, like you said, just because you say these things doesn't make suddenly you don't suddenly become not a sinner, or you don't suddenly stop struggling with the same things you struggled with before. Accountability in the past, I think, large part in the church has been kind of branded for many a male word. Men-to-man accountability has been really something that's been celebrated and promoted in the church for a long time now, for at least several decades, especially since the Promise Keepers movement in the 90s and stuff like that. There's been a very big move in that world. You don't hear as much of that coming from female community in the church, of more ongoing kind of accountability, the need for that. Has that been helpful to you? What do you see as an important steps that women can take, that now that they're getting it out in the open, they're talking openly about the goodness of sex and all the ways in which we've been burned sexually, all the ways in which we've been broken sexually, all the ways that we've sexually sinned against others. Once they're getting that out in the open, what does kind of an ongoing maintenance of accountability and talking about it look like? What does that kind of community look like for women?
I think the face-to-face relationship dynamic comes more naturally to women. I've heard that men are kind of shoulder to shoulder and women relate more face to face. And I have really found that it's been kind of a natural progression, a natural occurrence when you get a bunch of women together who have common goals. Choosing your friends wisely. I heard a quote by Jim Rohn that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And So my hubby and I have, when it comes to accountability and just really friendship, we are wise about choosing to spend that time with people who hold dear the same things that we do. Our relationship with the Lord primarily, and passionate about our spouses and about parenting and about, just being positive about what God has for our futures. And I think as you invest yourself in relationships where vulnerability and transparency are the foundation, that stuff, it's like you create an environment that stuff can come up. And so I think it's been really huge to just invest in friendships that are real. And, Scripture talks about iron sharpening iron, where it is a safe place to say, this is what I'm struggling with, and give each other permission to get into each other's lives and get into each other's faces when necessary.
Now, as a final thought here, what does it mean then, as these initial confessions come out, as more and more of this baggage is brought out, what does it really mean to work through that sexual woundedness and baggage? I mean, there's some people who've undergone incredible suffering, sexually speaking, relationally speaking, and have also wounded and sinned against others, sexually speaking, relationally speaking. So what does it look like? What did it look like for you? I mean, other than just being real about it, talking about it, what are some of the practical steps that took place in your own life and in the lives of other women that really has helped?
Great question. When my initial kind of breakthrough occurred right before my husband and I got married, and there was kind of this emotional vomit that occurred of this is the stuff that I have done. These are the lies that I've told you. I would love to tell people that it was easy because now my sin was in the light, and all the junk that had held me was now exposed. And there was an ease of breathing. There was almost a physical transformation because I had gotten so used to functioning under the weight of secrets. And I would love to say that it was easy, but we had years of working through the consequences of the choices that I had made. I really think it's so important that we understand the difference between condemnation and consequences, and that when we give something to God, He wipes it clean, and there is no condemnation. But like any good parent, He allows us to experience the consequences of those choices, and they are prime teaching opportunities, and His grace envelops the process, but they are still consequences. And something that was really important for my hubby and I was to keep that dialogue open, even though it can be uncomfortable. And a huge thing that the Lord revealed to me probably halfway, 5 or 6 years into marriage, we've been married for 11 years now, was being able to, as we talk back and forth about, intimacy and the seasons that we went through and what we were struggling with, being able to say, okay, here's an issue. God, if this is your heart for our marriage and our intimacy, what is the root of this thing? And instead of trying to put a Band-Aid on a cancer and pretend that, okay, well, it's out in the open, let's just move ahead, constantly digging, kind of getting your hands dirty in the dirt and saying, okay, God, what is the root of this response? For me, a big thing was, growing up in a Christian home, I knew what I should be doing. And so there was a lot of shame attached to what I was doing when I was out, going home with boys I didn't know from the bar. And so I learned to mentally check out. I would be there physically with them, but it wasn't like it was an encounter that I enjoyed. I enjoyed the attention. I enjoyed the pursuit. I enjoyed feeling valuable for just a moment. And I didn't say no. And so it would be a very unpleasant emotional experience for me. So I learned to check out. And so after years of checking out in sexual experience, I took that into my marriage. And it was a habit for me. I check out. And so for me to actually learn how to re-engage was quite a process. But being able to identify, oh, well, that's what's happening. And so that was a root issue. And, as we are willing to get our hands dirty, and keep the dialogue open. Him being able to say, honey, this is what I notice about you. This is where you're at. And just creating that safe space, no judgment, choosing our words wisely so that we're not putting salt on a wound. And then creating that space to uproot things so that in their place we can plant truth of, well, this is what God intends. This is what God desires. And it has been a process that wouldn't have happened if we weren't willing to go back and unlock the door of the closet we don't want to go in because it's ugly and there's cobwebs and it makes us uncomfortable. And anything that makes us uncomfortable, we shy away from. And being willing to kind of put on our combat boots and go in and say, I want to work through this because it's not serving me, it's hindering me. And that's not God's heart for my marriage. So am I willing to be uncomfortable now to uproot this so that we can move forward and experience all that God has for us?
Thank you so much, Joy, for being with us. The book is XES, Why Church Girls Tend to Get It Backwards and How to Get It Right. And you can visit Joy on her website. What's your website?
It's simplybloom.org.
Simplybloom.org. Thank you so much, Joy, for being here. And thanks, everyone, for listening. You can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Stop by and rate or review our podcast. Tell us what you think of it. Also, give us some suggestions about future shows. And stop by our blog, covenanteyes.com/blog, to read more articles on living a life of integrity in a sex-saturated culture. Thank you for listening.